Good morning, everyone. Myself, Sandeep Kumar Sahu. In this online class of iron making, I welcome you all. Hope you will enjoy it and it will help enhancing your knowledge. So, let's have our first online class on the semester, that is our introduction to iron making. At the outset, we should know what is metallurgy. It is the branch of science and technology concerned with the extraction, processing, characterization, and applications of metals and alloys. Extractive metallurgy primarily constitutes ferrous and non-ferrous extractive metallurgy, and ferrous extractive metallurgy gives equal importance to iron and steel making. Ferrous alloys has a lion's share in world metal production, and it accounts for about 95%. Wood steel, you can see the wood steel originated in South India. This is made up of wood steel. In South India, it is presently Tamil Nadu and Kerala. It is a crucible steel characterized by pattern of bands and a high carbon content. These bands are formed by martensite and pearlite in high carbon steel, or by ferrite and pearlite in bendings in low carbon steels. The method was to heat black magnetite ores in the presence of carbon in a sealed clay crucible inside a charcoal furnace to completely remove the slag. Another example of marvelous Indian metallurgy is the 1600 years old iron pillar of Delhi, which is shown in the right side of your screen. That iron pillar is made up of wrought iron since the time of Emperor II Chandragupta. It is the perfect evidence of material design to withstand cannonball strike and environmental degradation as well. Here it is the periodic table showing all the elements we come across in our study. The gases like hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, and some noble gases. Okay, a few solids like carbon, sulfur, phosphorus, and halogen groups elements. These belongs to non-metals. We can count them. Okay, boron, silicon, germanium, arsenic, antimony, and tellurium are commonly recognized as metalloids, and the rest, the huge number of elements left out are metals. So this is the importance of metallurgy. And today's point of interest is our iron making. So iron is the symbol Fe, which has been derived from the Latin name ferrum. It is a metal that belongs to the first transition series and group 8 of the periodic table, with atomic number 26, mass nearly about 56, melting point 1539 degrees Celsius, and a high density, that is 7.87 gram per cc. So we should know some basics about this iron, and why this iron and steel are so important to our metallurgy. At atmospheric pressure, there are three allotropic forms of iron which exist. That those are alpha iron, gamma iron, and delta iron. Below 910 degrees centigrade, this much temperature, below this to the room temperature, and beyond that, iron has body centered cubic structure and is known as alpha iron. In iron carbon alloys, it is also called iron alpha ferrite. and it's fairly soft. Between 900 to about 1400 or 1394 degrees centigrade. That is called your gamma iron, which is in FCC structure, and with carbon it is called your austenite. And beyond that, below the melting point, that is 1539 degrees centigrade, it is called your delta iron, okay, which is again FCC structure, and its alloy with carbon is called your delta ferrite. It reveals that we can readily alter the structure of iron and steel with the help of heat treatment, which ultimately changes the mechanical property for our required or desired applications. Iron is crucial for every kind of living organisms, including plants, bacteria, animals, and also humans. Why it is necessary? To transport oxygen through the hemoglobin in animal and humans. A human body contains about 3 to 4 grams of iron on an average. Iron is the most abundant element on the earth, but it accounts for only 5% on the earth crust, thus being only the fourth most abundant element after oxygen, silicon, and aluminum. As oxygen is non-metal or gas, silicon is metalloid, aluminum is only metal, so we can call it second most abundant metal in the earth crust. Various iron bearing minerals are found. For example, magnetite, that is the with the formula that is Fe3O4, which is blackish in color, and reddish color hematite has chemical formula Fe2O3. Goethite is an iron oxyhydroxide containing ferric iron. Limonite is one of the principal iron ores consisting of mixture of hydrated iron, oxide and hydroxide in varying compositions. Iron pyrite, also known as fool's gold due to its brass yellow appearance, it is an iron sulfide with chemical formula FeS2. Siderite is a mineral composed of iron carbonate, FeCO3. Okay, FeCO3. Commonly, ores used for iron making are hematite and magnetite, which are oxides. Reduction of iron oxide can be accomplished by the removal of lattice oxygen. By reduction, conversion of Fe2O3 to Fe3O4, Fe3O4 to FeO, FeO to Fe takes place, step by step. So, iron making is necessarily a reduction process. As the reduction proceeds, step by step, the metallic value increases. Out of many reducing agents like carbon, carbon monoxide, hydrogen, carbon monoxide is the major reductant in iron making. In case of iron making, both the direct and indirect reduction takes place. Okay, both the reactions taking place. For direct reduction, we consider generally the carbon is the reductant, but in case of indirect reduction, carbon monoxide is the reductant. For direct reduction of 1 kg of iron, only 0.23 kg of carbon is consumed, but results in absorption of 656 kilocalorie of heat. But 0.81 kg of carbon is required for indirect reduction of 1 kg of Fe from Fe2O3, and about 1790 kilocalorie of heat is evolved in the process. From these statements, we can conclude that direct reduction is carbon economic, but it is endothermic in nature. Indirect reduction is exothermic in nature, but it is carbon expensive. as the only source, that is the coke inside the blast furnace, which provides reducing agent and acts as fuel as well. We have to maintain the optimum ratio of direct to indirect reduction inside the blast furnace for less coke consumption. Then why carbon? This is the Ellingham diagram for oxides. The plot is the of standard free energy change for various oxides versus temperature. The diagram is useful in predicting the conditions under which an ore will be reduced to its metal. An element at bottom can reduce a metal oxide above it to its metallic form. Metallothermic reduction will produce more slag. Metallothermic production will produce more slag. Since the carbon plus oxygen gives rise to 2CO, means 2 carbon plus 1 mole oxygen gives rise to 2 moles of carbon monoxide. This line is downward slope. With a downward slope, it cuts across the lines for many of the other metals. This makes carbon usually useful as a reducing agent, because as soon as the carbon oxidation line goes down, a metal oxide, the carbon can then reduce, or carbon monoxide can reduce that metal oxide to its respective metal. At high temperature, CO is the universal reductant in all carbothermic reductions of oxides. Here is the diagram, well-known diagram, the iron cementite phase diagram, metastable diagram. It's a complex diagram, but we will consider with respect to our iron and steel making perspective. So we know that pure iron is soft. When carbon is introduced as an interstitial impurity or alloying element into iron, it produces steel or cast irons. It is evident from the phase diagram that the maximum solubility of carbon in gamma iron is about 2.14 weight percentage at 1147 degrees centigrade, which is also called the austenite. For plain carbon condition, alloy of iron and carbon with maximum 2.14% carbon is called steel. Beyond that, it is called cast iron. Cast iron is generally brittle and non-formable, but still has good strength as well as permeability. So, world's most useful and inexpensive alloy is our steel. As per World Steel Association data of 2019, the total crude steel production of the world is about 1869 million tons, out of which 53.3% has been produced by China, which is placed in the first position, and with about 6% production, India at second position, just above Japan. But when we consider or compare the per capita consumption, that is the kg, in kg, of the finished products steel, India is far behind these two countries, China and Japan. Regarding the routes of iron and steel production, there are mainly three routes for the iron and steel production. The conventional route of iron making consists of blast furnace iron making, where the raw materials are charged into the blast furnace, and the product, the pig iron, is produced and charged into the basic oxygen furnace to produce steel. In the secondary route of iron making, generally the scrap along with some additives are melted in electric arc furnace or electric induction furnace for producing steel. And the alternative routes of iron making consist of direct reduction process, where the raw materials are introduced into the DR process and then after the solid sponge iron is produced and melted in the electric arc furnace to produce steel. The most important thing is that the coke making process from metallurgical coal, that point has been eliminated in direct reduction process, which is the backbone of your blast furnace process and the expensive one. The blast furnace. Blast. The name suggests that it is operated on blast, that means the hot air. Iron can be extracted by the blast furnace because oxygen of iron oxides can be displaced by carbon. This is more efficient method than electrolysis because it is more cost effective. The blast furnace works on a counter current principle where the ascending hot gases meet the descending solid charge. Inside a blast furnace, the raw materials are coming down from top and the gas is going up from the tuyeres to the top. So this is a counter current process. So the ascending gases are responsible for your reduction of iron oxides inside the blast furnace along with heating and melting of these materials inside the blast furnace. What does we get? The result is the products are our liquid metal, that means the pig iron, and liquid slag, blast furnace gas. These two are your byproduct. Our product is your pig iron, but we cannot produce metal without producing a slag and blast furnace gas. So we have to produce. Where does this idea came from? This blast furnace idea came from Stückhofen, which is considered to be the progenitor of the modern blast furnace. In an integrated steel plant, iron making in the blast furnace plant layout is shown in your screen. Here, the blast furnace plant consists of blast furnace proper. The blast furnace proper, which is called the blast furnace plant, this is your blast furnace proper, where the actual reduction of the oxides takes place. And the raw materials such as iron ore, sinter, flux raw materials are supplied to the blast furnace through calculated with a calculated amount and a definite sequence. These raw materials are weighed and passed through these skip cars into the blast furnace and charged from the top. There are some charging equipments like bells or bellless stops which will distribute the materials inside the blast furnace uniformly. Okay, and there are stoves, blast furnace stoves, which will provide blast into the blast furnace at the above the Bose region, above the hearth region, that is the Bose region. Okay, and this gas, this blast will react with the materials inside the blast furnace with the coke to produce carbon monoxide, and this carbon monoxide will reduce the iron oxides and again form carbon dioxide. Okay, and so many reactions inside the blast furnace are taking place. This is a counter current process. And where does this gas goes out? These gases are going out from these pipes. Those are called optics. These are called optics, and then after it's downcomer to the gas cleaning units. The gas cleaning units consist of different equipments like your dust catcher, which decreases the coarse particles from the gas. Then after it goes to the scrubber, where it uses the water spray to reduce the finer particles. Then maybe there may be ESP, which will decrease the finer particles. And then after the blast furnace gas is cleaned, and this cleaned blast furnace gas can be used elsewhere in the furnace, but the main demand goes to your blast furnace stove, where it acts as the fuel and preheats the checkers to produce blast. It's a cyclic process. Finally, let's have a look on the input output of a blast furnace, a typical blast furnace. So our basis is to produce 1 ton of pig iron. For production of 1 ton of pig iron, we have to use or supply 2 to 2.5 ton of iron ore sinter pellet, 0.3 to 0.4 ton of flux, and the most importantly 0.4 to 0.45 to 0.55 ton of coke into the blast furnace, and 2500 normal meter cube of blast into the blast furnace from the bottom. Okay, and the reaction takes place. It produces 0.6 ton of slag, 3200 normal meter cube of blast furnace gas containing about 80 kg of dust. Generally, the pig iron produced, the hot metal produced contain about 3.5 to 4.5 carbon, and silicon 0.5 to 1 or 1.1, manganese 0.5 to 0.9, phosphorus is 0.05 to 0.35, and sulfur is 0.03, which is in the safe limit, which cannot be decreased beyond the blast furnace, because it's a reducing atmosphere which is required for sulfur removal. But phosphorus is not quite removed. We have to go for oxidizing atmosphere in the steel making to reduce further sulfur. And in case of slag, the main constituent is your calcium oxide, then after your silica, alumina, and negligible amount of oxides, other oxides, because it's a reducing atmosphere, completely reducing atmosphere. So you can have some idea about your blast furnace iron making. So this is all about your introduction. If anyone have any query, then can ask. Thank you all.